Next, we're going to move on to some bus processing. On this particular session, there was a bus set up sending to bus 1 right here, over here, and drum busing. And that's one way to do it. However, you need to be really careful when you do this because it's setting up a parallel path. So basically, all these are sending to bus 1, but also these tracks are going to the stereo output. And what that means is these two things are happening at the same time, the drum bus and the stereo out. And so you need to start to be careful with plugins that you add, because if one of them adds latency or has a crossover or something like that, you're going to start to get phasing problems across your entire drum mix. I noticed that in particular with this Fat Effects plugin that was on there. That's starting to add some weird filtering and resonance buildups and stuff that I don't like. There was also a space designer added here as an insert, which sounds good, but I think it's best practice to have this on a send. So what I'm going to do is actually, instead of using this as a send, I'm going to send my stereo out to this drum bus. So now my drums, instead of sending a version there, they are going directly to the drum bus. So this drum bus is going to be our actual drum bus. This send, I'm going to turn into another bus, bus 2, and we're going to send there. So now we have our main drums going to the drum bus. We have a version of our drums going to this aux 2, and this is going to be our drum reverb. Okay, and I like the sound of the space designer, so I'm just going to pop it right over there. What I'm going to do is turn down the dry in the space designer, because we already have a dry version of our drums going down the drum bus at the same time. So the idea of this is to be just a fader and control and processing for the drum reverb. So let's just see what it sounds like right now, and we'll go from there. I also like doing it this way because instead of needing to go into the plugin and adjust the wet and dry balance, you just have a fader for your reverb. It's a lot quicker and more efficient. Since our kit doesn't have room mics, we're going to rely on this drum reverb to sound more like a room mic. And so a room mic having a 1.7 second decay is kind of long. So I'm going to shorten this down to like 800 or so and see what that sounds like. Can actually drag this envelope right here and kind of design the space. If only they had named the plugin like that. Sorry. Okay. That is starting to feel more like the response of a room mic to me. And what I'm going to do, you can do this in 2 spots. The first one is on this output EQ right here. You can actually EQ the response of the reverb, but that is harder to get to in my opinion. So just click this box and it'll add a regular channel EQ just for your reverb. And so one thing you can do to make it feel more like a room mic is I use ribbon mics for my room, so it's a little rolled off. So we're going to roll off some of these super lows. Helps to clean up your kick drum too. And then I'm going to roll off some of the super highs because to my ear, the super high part of a reverb is what makes it feel the most artificial. Okay, so now we're going to blend that back in with our regular drums. Another benefit of cutting out this ultra high and ultra lows on the reverb is it helps the actual drums that are occupying that ultra high and ultra low space cut through the mix better. So your reverb is kind of more like a vibe in the middle, and then the stuff that matters is still being provided by the actual drum kit. Just get a good balance there. I'm going to set up another reverb just for my snare and toms. Since the gates are pretty aggressive and we don't have a direct room mic to kind of fill that boominess that the snare and toms would provide, I'm going to make another reverb to accomplish that task. So I'm going to do a mono to stereo reverb here and just start finding something. Let's do a room. I like nice room. It sounds nice. And matching nice room with nice hall, that's appropriate. So we're going to call this, we'll just call it snare verb. So this is just that, just the snare and toms going to it. If the toms get too boomy, you can always pull down the send of those so they're not going as strong. That's up to you, up to your taste. Shorten it back down. Here's without it, and then we'll blend it back in. Let me treat it real quick. Just the mids. So that kind of pushes your snare back out to the sides, helps fill the space a little bit. I just grabbed these two reverbs arbitrarily, but definitely take your time and go through, find a reverb you like that really helps the sound. If you have third-party plugins, these are great for that too. True Verb by Waves is great. I also like FabFilter Pro R or whatever it is, the FabFilter reverb. That one's a good one too. I'm going to create yet another bus send here, going to bus 4. And this is going to be for parallel compression. And what parallel compression is essentially an alternate drum bus, not for reverb, just for the drum sound. However, it's going to be super compressed, like super compressed. So we're going to go here and get a compressor. And I like to do something different for this. Maybe like a vintage VCA is a fun one. This is like the SSL compressor, if you're familiar. It's just a good sounding compressor, and it sounds even better when you slam it. So let's find a good spot here. So we're gonna up our ratio. Let's do 8:1. Let's just go crazy. And we want enough attack so that this transient is super cutting through, and I'll do the auto release. And then just pull this down until it's just destroyed. And what you get with this is a super strong transient attack because we have a slow attack, which lets that transient cut through, but then we're compressing it down a lot. So basically when the drum hits, you get a super powerful transient spike, and then it just crushes it after that. And the resulting sound is amazing when it's blended in with your original drums. By itself, it's a little too extreme. You probably don't want to hear your drums sounding like that. But with the original drum bus, it adds this huge thickness, fullness, greatness to it. Call that parallel or para. So here is all 4 of my drum buses together. And you may notice as you start to go, you're building up more sound. So I just like to grab them all and pull them down until the sum of all these buses is reaching -12. Here's without drum buses. Sorry, without like the new ones, it still has the dry one. So that is just with our basics, our meat and potatoes, EQ, gates, compression, a little bit of reverb, a little bit of bus compression. We haven't even touched on transient enhancement or saturation or fat effects, anything else. This is just our basics. And I would strongly encourage you to get really good at your basics because you can only get so far with kind of the icing, if you will, like the bass enhancement and other stuff like that, it's important to just be able to make it sound good with basic tools. If you ever run live sound and you have a console that's a little older, you might only have like, a basic EQ, maybe a compressor. And so you need to be able to fundamentally make the audio sound good with just basic tools. So I hope this part of it was helpful. Yeah, that's it for the basics.